My name is Steltz. I was born and raised in Germany. My most of the school years was during the war, World War II. World War II started in 1939. Hitler against Poland and Russia. In 1941, it started with Italy, France, England, United States. That's when we really felt it, because where I was living was in the middle of Germany. If you saw a German map, it was right in the middle. The war came from all sides, and Germany got smaller and smaller. We also had to take all the people from Germany where the war was taking place. We had to take all the people, mothers with children or senior citizens, in. So we really were very crowded. We had to take people in. My parents had a Cape Cod style house. At one time we were 15 people living in there. You just took one room and there where we lived. Also through this, we had no food because we were surrounded by war, nothing, no import, no nothing, and even what was there was not enough for all the people. So hunger was a main thing at that time. When I was maybe 12, I used to go to farmers and work to get some food. Sometimes I was maybe picking potatoes all day, and the farmers at that time were baking those big loaf of breads. You got one slice of bread, and then I took it home and shared it with my sisters. So you can, I guess, figure out that you never were really satisfied with food. You were always hungry. With school, all the teachers at that time, or most of the teachers, were men, and they had to go to the war. So there were hardly any teachers. For 2 years I was taught by my teacher's wife, who was not a teacher. And we had every other day 2 hours of school because she couldn't get around to all the kids. Everything at that time was mostly self-taught. You had to read books and just to get along a little bit. And from those 2 hours often, we had to go in the bomb shelter because there was almost well, a couple of times a week air raids, and you had to go in a shelter somewhere. Even if you didn't make it in the shelter, you had to go in your own cellar, but it didn't protect you too much. When the bomb came down, you know, it's powerful. When and about, shoot, like the bombs, when they came down, I was born in the city, but my parents built a house in a little village outside the city. So this was lucky for us, because they usually bombed the big cities. And when you were even in a bomb shelter in a city, you could hear and feel the vibration and the noise from the outside. I myself did not experience bombing in our town, but after a bomb raid, when you went in the city, it was just ruins, just like you see now on television in the war overseas. It was the same thing, and I often told my grandsons, when we watched television and the people and the kids were running and shooting and bombing, I said, that's how it was. Maybe with less powerful guns and ammunition, but it was the same thing. It's sometimes flashback when I watch this on television. About hunger. When you, like I said, Germany got smaller and smaller and there was less to eat and you had to share. We had ration stamps for everything, but it didn't help much because there was nothing in the store that you could get for your stamps. Well, often, like I said, we would work for farmers, my mother and I, because my sisters were younger. Just maybe for a cup of milk sometimes. Or often I went to school, no breakfast. And then we could go home for lunch, but there was not much either, maybe a half a potato. But it had to be enough. Also, you do almost anything for food when you're hungry. You steal, and you eat anything. There was no such thing. I don't like that, because when you're really hungry, you eat anything. I had people from the city coming out in the country. They stole even from the flower, the roots, and ate them. You know, from the garden, from the flowers and whatever. When the bombing and the air raids they were the last 1.5 years that they were really bad. The airplanes would fly maybe 60 in a bunch in a triangle, always the same formation. And one time, my sister and I and 2 neighbor boys, we went out in the potato fields to pull dandelions to feed our rabbits, so we had something to eat. So we were out there, and we called them the silver birds, went over, and, you know, they were so high that they looked like little birds. And how it happened quite often, one would come down, the source in the field, and it came down, and then at that time it was machine guns. You could hear and we were trained. When you see an airplane coming down, you play dead. Lay in a ditch or somewhere flat, not moving. And we were so scared because I myself, the bullet went maybe that far from my ear, and you can hear and feel it. It's like just like a little air or so was by, and it's a funny feeling. So that's what it did, and then the airplane goes up and they're gone. But when we got up and looked, there were bullet holes all over. We were just so lucky that we were not hit. But that's a little scary when it's that close. So that was my experience. Also, when the last few days of the war, like I said, we were in the middle. We were pretty close to the end of the war till the Americans came in our section, because Germany was divided after the East section and then the British and the American section, and that's where I was living. When on the day they came to our area, we could hear the tanks coming down the street. It's even a vibration, you can feel it all over. And we were told, if you don't have a white flag out as surrender, they will shoot, because they don't know what's in town. Our house was the last house of the town and across the street from a church. So we didn't see anywhere white flag. So my mom went and got a bean pole, put a sheet on, but where do we put it so they can see it when they come? So we went over to the church, and there were halfway up was steps, and the rest we had to push her up to get that flag out of in the direction where the Americans came in, and that's why we were safe. They didn't shoot, and then they came right in our driveway. The one tank came right in, and the cannon was right in the front door. Right in, the door was open, it was right in the door. So, but it was lucky for us that the war was over, and because Hitler had the idea, well, first of all, the idea to rule the world, and then he was a crazy man. What he all wanted, they wanted to get rid of so many people. I guess you heard about the concentration camps, the Jews, but it was not just the Jews he wanted to get rid of. There were the people who didn't join his party. They were on the blacklist. Also, well, I give you an example. There was a youth group, the Hitler Jugend, and everybody had to join. There was no, oh, I don't join, or the parents said, no, you don't join. It just wasn't. You had to join. And every Sunday morning there was a gathering, and you were taught about the good of Hitler and the good of Nazis and everything. And you had to march and Heil Hitler and all those things went. But some people, my mother included, sometimes she said, no, I don't send you, you go to church today. Well, she had to pay pretty high fine, because, this was just not accepted. And after the war, we found out, well, when the war was over, the there was no government in Germany because it was so divided. So in our part, the American army was the government. And we knew a young man who was the interpreter for the American, and he came to my parents one time, or to my mother, and he said, we found something, and they found a list for people who were supposed to go to concentration camp, and our name was on the bottom list. So for me, it was lucky there was a war and it was over, or I wouldn't be here. That was scary. What else could I say about the war? My father was first in the war against Poland and Russia, and then he was injured and he was home for about a year. But he didn't join the Nazi, the party, what they want to join. So they sent him to Yugoslavia to guard ammunition camp. And we didn't hear from him for 1.5 years because it was a secret where the camp was. So that wasn't too nice either. When he came home, he was not just a few months as a prisoner of the war, but when he came home, I didn't know him, just his voice, because he looked like a skeleton, and I didn't see him for 1.5 years. But that was sort of a punishment for him that needed older men, so they sent him to that dangerous place. With being hungry, that's another thing. My mother passed out one time, and we got a neighbor, and till she came around what happened, she hadn't eaten for 2 days, so she could give us girls the food. And many parents did that, to survive. People in the city, they were worse off because we could work at a farmer's, and my mom had our house stood on a 2-acre land, and the 1 acre she had just food, vegetables, everything, so we were lucky this way. But the people, like I said, in the city, it was hard. Even keeping the house warm in the winter time. We moved because at that time there was no heating system. You had in each room a little coal stove or wood stove, and so you moved in one room, put 2 beds in and a cook stove, and that's where you lived, just to stay warm, because you couldn't even buy coal. The people in the city, I remember I had cousins in the city, they went always to the train station when the freight went through with coals, the big one little coal after the other, so they had something to stay warm. I had cousins who lived in the city. As soon as school was out for the summer, they would go on the bike and ride 7 hours to come to our village to get food. And everybody in the village knew already their name was Axe. And when they said the Axe boys are coming, They all were on guard because they went all over and stole everything and ate it. They had, I remember at that time, they had, because where I lived, it's the end of Bavarian, they had a lederhosen on. They took everything what was growing, rubbed it on there and ate it. Doesn't matter what it was. But they were hungry. And when you're hungry, you do, for food, you do anything. We did often after a thunderstorm in the summer, when the thunderstorm was at night, in the morning, my mom gave us backpacks and said, go out and pick the apples who fell down, because they were on the road. This was state road, and the apples what belonged to the state, you could pick them up, but what was hanging over to the farmer's land, this was theirs. But of course, you go up, you want as much as you want, and we would go in the farmer's land, and they too, and the farmer came around the corner with a whip, and you know, we got quite a few whips from, but you do what you have to do. We had chickens, rabbits, so we had something to eat. We even had a goat, so we had some milk. What else? We had, like I said, we had ration stamps, but there was nothing available. So we were three girls, we had one pair of good shoes. We were mostly barefoot to school or so, but on Sunday to church, I went first and wore the shoe. I went home, my next sister put newspaper in the front, so she had shoe, and then the next, she had put stuff more than newspaper in, so she had a pair of shoes to go. But that's how you live. In the winter time, I don't know when, after the war, I had real shoes. There was an old woman, she made, what we call it, shoes, out of blankets or old winter coats. She made double knit and put sheep wool in between, they were warm. And her son was a shoemaker, and he cut up bicycle tires and put them on, and that's what we wore in the winter. They were warm, but if you went in the snow, we were soaked, because it was not, was just, but that's all we had. And we were lucky that we had that. I had no winter coat till after the war, because there was nothing available. So what we did, I personally and my mom went to a farmer who had a few sheep. So we worked for him, he gave us some wool, and then we spun the wool and knitted heavy sweaters and stuff. That's how we survived in the winter. It's hard to imagine that there is nothing there. Because there's always something there, but it's not in times like this. Well, like I said, we shared. At one time when we were 15 people in the house, there were maybe 5 children and older people and mothers. Whatever we had to share with them. They were hungry just as we were. After the war, when the Americans came, they were very nice to us, but we were scared of them because all the stories we were told what happened. And I remember when they came and tank was there, there were about 5 or 6 who came out. And then the one came and had a box full of eggs and gave it to my mom. And my mom, well, there was a language barrier. We couldn't speak English, they couldn't speak. So, and he kept on talking, and my mom said, I guess they want me to cook eggs. So she tried it, and he said then too, he made motions like this, and she made eggs and bought bread and everything. But they ate it, but they didn't give anything to us. And there were little kids, and they were, I'm hungry, but I guess they didn't understand it. And there were about, in our house, there were about a half a day, and then they moved on. But when they left, I don't know what he was, captain or whatever, he came in with a can. I remember that so well. And my mother was running around and said, I guess he wants a can opener to open it. And they were jabbering with each other, and then finally he opened the cupboard and put it in and went out. Well, later we found out this was a can of meat he wanted to give us for thank you, and I guess he knew that we didn't have anything to eat. So I remember that so well. Also, the air raids and stuff when came. One time I was in a train, was in the next city to come home, and there was an air raid, and the train stopped, always stopped, and then you try to hide or run, and I was hiding under the train because you cannot think fast enough what to do. And so many, it was on a hill, they went down the hill, but that shooting was so horrible. Then afterwards, there were people I knew, there were the arm missing, or, you know, screaming all over, and those were things would occurred quite often, not just one time. What else? Would you like to know about the concentration camps and stuff? And in my immediate area, there was none. They were further away. But a lot of people think a concentration camp is like a jail. Like a jail has a building and rooms. A concentration camp is just a big field with high wire fences. But the buildings in there, they're just, I would call them barracks. They're long buildings, just wooden buildings, mostly no windows or just a little opening and a door, dirt floor, and that's where the people were shoved in to wait for the gas chambers. The pictures I saw, they were mostly, the barracks were in lines, and then off to the side were two smaller buildings, the same barracks, and there were the gas chambers. And people who lived nearby, they could see often when the people were lined up to go in the gas chambers. And then came the trucks and just took the bodies on the trucks, which were then transported to a ditch mass grave, which the people had to dig before they went in the gas chambers. And the pictures I saw, there were hundreds of bodies then in there. But like I said, they were not in our immediate area, they were further away. But those are things I saw pictures or read in the books, and a lot of the people in there were half starved already because they had either hard labor and nothing to eat, or just a lot of people went crazy because they just were in there with nothing. And then a lot of times the children were taken away, they were different, and the children who escaped, or the parents who sent them away, it was just a lady on television a couple of weeks ago. She's 90 and she lives in the United States now. When she was 8 years old, her parents drew underground, sent her from Germany to Switzerland. And there some strangers again, took her to France, and from there somebody else brought her to the United States. And she could tell stories because she was closer to that. And her parents, disappeared. She doesn't know, well, assuming they went to the gas chamber because there's no record, no nothing of them. But she said she doesn't know when or what or nothing. Any question? No?
When you were in your home, just doing stuff with your family, were you always scared, or was there always a plan?
You always had that knot in your stomach that something would happen, something unexpected, because it was not just the bombs and everything, it was also the people who followed Hitler. They were watching the other people to get them in trouble because they didn't join the party, they didn't join Hitler. So they was always scared, and even in the morning, you went to school, maybe a half an hour later, the siren went and you had to go in a bomb shelter. So you were always that sort of on edge, always. Even when we went out in the field to work with the farmers, was always you had into your mind, I hope nothing is coming, no airplane or anything. But still, as kids, we had fun. There was no toys or anything, but we would play in the whole village, hide and seek. It took a half a day till we found all the people, because we could hide in the barn and all over. We still had fun. We still had times where we were happy and forgot all the war. Yeah.
I'm going to try this.
Yeah.
Hast du heard Hitler sprechen?
Sprechen?
Yeah.
Yeah, einmal. I guess you know what she said. She asked whether I heard Hitler speak. One time I did. One time. But I wasn't impressed. Yeah.
So you said you heard bad stories or bad things about the Americans. What kind of things did you hear?
Well, we were told from the Nazis and from them, when the Americans come, they're gonna kill you, they're gonna, anything bad that scared us, sort of was a scare tactic to, and they take everything away, and it was just, they rape you, and that was what we heard, which was the opposite when they came then.
What kind of guns did you have in the war?
How many?
No, what kind?
What
How
kind
many?
of, I don't even know, not what
How
I have.
many?
I don't know. I didn't know too much about guns.
Did you and your family ever think about moving outside of Germany?
No, there was no choice, because we were surrounded by war. It would be, well, that did go out with underground organizations, but most of the time you had no choice. It was just so, we were surrounded by war, but still the Nazis were so aggressive and on top of everything that you would have taken a big chance just to try. Yeah.
What was it like after the war ended? Like, how long did it take to
It
maybe
was
get back to
still,
normal?
for years, it was still bad, because there was still nothing here, everything was bombed and ruined. I wanted to go to college, but all the bridges were out. I remember to the next big city, they had, and there was a big river, they had a little homemade barge or whatever to go over. And there was still nothing to eat because it was not built up. It took years to build it up. So I said, if I go there, I cannot go home and there's nothing to eat. And so my father was a master tailor. He started his business. So I went with him worked as an apprentice for tailor and then for dressmaker. I'm a master tailor and dressmaker. That was that time the best chance for me to get a trade and have a, education, because you have to go to trade school also. So, but after the war, it was still bad. You were still living in one room, and because it took years to build up. And then in 1948, our money, the Reichsmark at that time, was, I don't know how to say it, but it wasn't worth anything. I remember it was announced that on Saturday, midnight, you can buy nothing with your money, or you can burn it, there's nothing there. And the next day, we had to go to the town hall, and each person got 40 bucks. And the businesses got a little bit more. And that's how we had to start out again. So it was still bad because you had no money now. Nobody had money. But still you had to pay your mortgage and your electric bill, and so this was really rough. And it started to get better than in the 50s. There it got better. I guess I did like after the war. The first Christmas after the war, it was bad yet. And my dad told us, like I said, we were 3 girls, what do you want for Christmas? And we all said, a pound of butter. Because we didn't have butter for so long, and my dad said, if I can get it on the black market,
Trying to come in quietly is not working, I'm sorry.
I will, he said. And he did, but he paid $100 for a pound of butter. And we all put our name on because we wanted to save it. And my youngest sister, we couldn't find her after a while, and we looked for her. She was in a closet, and he ate the whole thing. because she was so hungry for that. So, but she got sick after.
Did you ever like meet Nazis?
Oh, yeah, yeah, there were in every town, in every village, there was a, how would I say it, a Nazi who was in charge of everything in every town, and they would even walk around with a band, with a swatches on. Yeah, they were in every town, and you had to be careful what you said, because they could report you if you said too much against the Nazis. It was always, you had to be on tiptoes, you know, always watch out what you say or to whom you say it. And we, at night, excuse me, at night, we would listen to the radio, to what we called the black sender, you know, this was the ones who were against the Nazis, and we were listening. And if you were caught or somebody found out a little bit and talked to one of the Nazi guys there, you were in trouble. So you had to be on the lookout all the time. Yeah.
Did you ever see a Nazi officer and a Jewish member run into each other?
No, I didn't do that. But I remember that the Jews in our area were quite a few, and in the city, they had to wear a star that you recognized this was a Jew. You know, and they could not go in certain organizations, and they had to even watch what they say or how they gather in a city. If there were more than 4 or 5 together, the Nazi would come and spread them apart, you know. They were the outcasts. Because it was, I remember the kids, when they walked and had a star, a yellow star, they had to wear.
Did you ever meet anyone that was like part of a resistance?
A part of what?
A part of like, who like didn't like the Nazis? You know, they were
Like the Nazis?
Didn't like the Nazis.
Oh, yeah, yeah. My relatives, and I would say most of the village I lived in, they were against it. They were against the Nazis. But like I said, if you were really against them, you had to watch out, because Hitler or his party really didn't like it, because Hitler's idea was to create a new nation and a new world. That was his idea. He wanted only blonde, blue-eyed people. That was his idea to, in the long run, to create. And he was against everybody else. There are a lot of horror stories what Hitler did. Which I really don't like to talk about.